I think we've all heard the saying that 90% of the fish live in 10% of the water. And then my customer the other day had another saying that I thought was even more accurate than that, and that is 90% of the fish are caught by 10% of the anglers. And that has stuck with me since he said that. And I got 3 ways for y'all of where you can start out on becoming, more consistent on catching inshore fish. The first way is a hook and line fishing maps. So this map will show you some fishing areas that you can try. It'll show you boat ramps, kayak launches, bait stores, which areas are more consistent during certain times of the year. It's got a lot of pretty good stuff on that map, and that's where I started when I first moved to inshore fishing. But I will tell you this map, they're highlighting areas that are good fishing areas. They are passing up a lot of really good stuff. Most of the stuff that I fish is not on this map, as far as it being a good spot. So they highlight the good areas with a red line or a red circle, with a bunch of slashes in it. And some of the areas are good, but they're missing all the really good stuff, man. And I don't know if they do that on purpose, or what. But so the second way to find some good areas is to use Google Earth. This is what I do every single day, man. I study Google Earth. I'm kind of running out of stuff to hit, running out of new areas. I have fished everything, but if you study Google Earth, and I'm going to show y'all a few things to look for on Google Earth as far as structure goes. Structure holds fish, and it doesn't matter where you fish at, these areas or these structures will work. It doesn't mean they're going to hold them every single time. Sometimes you got to do a little spot jumping and things like that. But it's a really good place to start. So we'll go over all of the Google Earth structure for you, because this map just doesn't really show structure, So it's got water depths, and that'll give you some ideas of what the water depth is and all that. And the third way to be a more consistent inshore angler, which also helps me out, it helps support me in what I do. It helps me to keep on making videos for y'all, to keep on, doing what I love, is my membership page. And I have weekly fishing reports on there where I'm doing good at, maybe some areas where I'm not doing good at. We talk about tides, we talk about weather, things to avoid during certain conditions and things like that. So I do appreciate all of my members. Thank y'all very much. So let's get over to Google Earth. You can download Google Earth. I prefer to use it on my computer because you can really see the images better. So we'll start off in some grass flats, and things that I look for when I'm fishing grass flats is an area that has mostly submerged grass along with a few potholes. And the potholes are these tan spots that you see right in the grass. So these tan spots, we call them potholes. It's where there's not any grass, and it's basically a pocket, and the fish like to sit down in those pockets. You get into an area that has some scattered potholes, and you want to try to position your boat or your kayak, whichever way you're fishing, to where you can cast right through the pothole. You bring your lure through those potholes and keep your lure in the strike zone. You just hit it 6 or 7 casts, and then you move on down to the next pothole and you start working the next set of potholes. And these potholes are a lot easier to see when there's a little bit of sunlight. You can see them if the water's clean, depending on where you're fishing at, if there's not much sunlight, but it is a lot easier to see them with sunlight. The next structure in grass flats are going to be little small islands, and some of them are not even exposed depending on the tide level. And fishing around these real shallow islands and stuff, you still have grass flats all around those islands. And I generally will drift into the island. So if it's a southeast wind, I'll start out drifting out here and I'll just fan cast. And as I'm drifting, that wind's going to be pushing me towards this little island if I position my kayak correctly, and fan cast. And if I hook up, it's going to let me know that, okay, those fish today or at this moment are either, you know, a couple hundred feet off of the island, or maybe they're right up tight with the island. Once you figure that out, then you put that together and you work that same scenario over and over again. If you quit catching fish around this particular island, but you were catching them right up next to the island, then you go to your next little island, and now the next island, you don't really need to drift into it and waste all that time. The next island, you should start off fishing right up tight because that's where the fish were on that island. There seems to always be a pattern, and figuring out that pattern will help you to be a lot more consistent. So potholes, islands, I usually catch most of my fish near islands if I'm fishing grass flats. And then you have islands with basically little back lakes inside of them. So you have a grass flat that is within this island, and it's basically a back lake. These areas hold redfish, drum, sometimes trout, it just depends on the area, and sometimes some really good flounder. So islands with back lakes, this is going to be another grass flat scenario. And then of course you can't pass up jetties, any kind of rocks, fishing around the rocks. And more importantly, I'm focusing on the rock points on both ends, and then I'll go on down to the next one and work the next one. Keeping in mind, I'm not spending more than 10 or 15 casts on each structure because I'm trying to put together a pattern. Once I figure out that pattern, then I'm going to slow down a little bit. I'm going to fish that pattern a little bit harder. Here's some grass flats with islands and deeper guts. So the blue color that you see right up here that's going through the two islands, this is where current runs in and out. It causes a deeper gut. There's one there. There's one over here. Here's one. This one's a shallow one, so current doesn't really run through there, so I wouldn't really target that as hard as I would where the current is pushing through. If the current's pushing through this way, then you'll fish the stuff all around it on that side. And if the current's pushing the other way, then you'll fish out here. And the reason you do that is because the current is pushing and funneling bait fish through these cuts, and those fish will ambush them right out there, whichever way the current's going. So deeper guts that are within submerged grass. So you see the blue color, this gut wraps around that way and it goes out through there. So these deeper guts are, once again, they're caused by current and things get funneled through there. So fishing the area around these deeper guts is definitely a good place to try. Another good thing that people probably pass up a lot is culverts, especially if those culverts are pushing water and draining water into the bay. Those are really good places to try. Areas where the submerged grass breaks up. So you have this color in here, this is your submerged grass, and it's pretty consistent through here, and then it breaks up all in here, and it's a deeper gut right there. That blue color shows you that it's deeper, and then the grass starts again on that side. You'll have to figure out every morning and throughout the morning where those fish are at. So you start off in the grass and you work your way towards that deeper gut, and when you start hooking up in the deeper gut, especially if it's winter time, if it's real cold, they'll be in that deeper gut. Won't be quite as many in the shallow grass, except for redfish. They're pretty dang tough. Redfish don't care, man. They don't care if it's hot or cold. But there are some situations that the deeper guts are holding them better than the grass. Areas with multiple structure changes. So you have a line of rocks in there. Those rocks go all the way down. You have an island right here. You have an island right up in here. And even though it's kind of hard to tell from this image because it was a windy day, this is deeper that runs that way and runs that way. So you have all these things happening right in here in one spot. So multiple structure changes within one area is good to target. Oyster reefs that are out in an open bay. A lot of times those oyster reefs are near a shoreline, but there are some areas that they're just way out in the open. These oyster reefs hold fish. Hit each of those oyster reefs until you find one that's holding fish, and then stick it out and keep on fishing that oyster reef. Here's some more oyster reefs over here in this bay that are just out in the open. There's one right there, there's one right there, and here's one up here. All of your muddy bays, your marshy areas will have oysters somewhere. Creek mouths that are within a back lake. So your marsh areas have a lot of back lakes, and the creek mouths that open up into the back lake or that open up into the bay are good to fish. And this one has two creek mouths. You have a creek right here opening up, and you have a creek right here opening up. So this whole area can be good to fish. There can always be fish out in the open as well, but if you can narrow down an area, it's a lot less things to cover, and you can just hit those areas without having to waste a whole lot of time fishing a whole bunch of dead water. Shoreline bends, shoreline points. So this would be your point, this would be your bend, all in there. Plus you have a creek mouth, so you have a couple different structure changes going on all in the same spot. Here's some more deeper guts. You can tell it's deeper because of the blue color. And here's another little creek mouth that opens up into a deeper gut. Here's a submerged grass area. This is a grass flat in a muddy bay, and this is your shoreline over here. You can definitely drift these flats. I'm usually trying to drift close to the shorelines. I'm usually finding redfish closer to the shorelines. So if you let that wind push you way out here, it's going to push you into dead water where there's no fish. So keep your boat or your kayak closer to that shoreline. You can either use your trolling motor, or you can use your pedal drive or your paddle. Just pay attention to the shoreline. When that wind pushes you off of that shoreline too far, then you got to reposition. It takes a lot of positioning to be successful. Most of the time when I'm using artificial, I'm not going to anchor. I'm just going to really cover water. If I get into an area that looks really good activity, and it's a windy day, then I will anchor in front of that activity, because otherwise the wind will just blow me right through it. Here's another area with two creek mouths opening up into the bay. So all of these areas are good, especially on an outgoing tide. And of course you have just the back lakes that are in the marsh. All of these lakes can be good. Don't stop until you see some good activity. Looking for wakes on the shorelines, looking for tails, redfish school, putting their tails up. Whenever I get into a back lake, I just stand up in my kayak and I scan all across, and I'm looking for something that looks out of place, something that's making the water move different, look different. And if I can't quite tell what it is, but it looks interesting to me, then I'll paddle over closer to it until I can figure out what it is. And if it's what I want to see and what I'm looking for, then I'm going to start casting. Mangrove shorelines. The mangrove shorelines are definitely a favorite of mine, especially areas where it's breaking up. There's all kinds of structure changes. The mangroves are broken up. It's not just a solid long stretch of mangroves. They are actually just kind of all over the place, and fishing near those mangroves, even on the inside of them, on the outside of them. So these are your hot spots along mangroves, and also in here. Also, you can catch them in the potholes that are near. So I would say a couple 100 yards is about as far as I drift out. I sometimes catch them in the open flats, but it's not near as consistent for me. In the wintertime, when the water temp is in the 50s, these deeper channels and things will hold fish, especially when you can tell that it's real blue in color. And if it's in a muddy bay like this area over here, you can tell that this blue water is a lot bluer than this over here. So this is a deeper channel, and those hold fish in the winter. Here's another good gut, just an example of a gut and an island cut. It runs right through there, so fish on both sides of it. Areas with a lot of oyster reefs like this one, you can just drift across whichever way the wind's blowing. If it's blowing southeast, then you'll start on this side and you'll drift across these reefs. If you don't do any good, come back upwind, move over, and drift the next set of reefs. Once you get out of them, then you come back upwind, you move over, and just cover all of these reefs. And like I said, once you start catching, you can put your anchor down if you want to, or you can make that same drift again and be pretty successful doing the rinse and repeat method. We're just waiting for the cold front to blow through. This week's weather is looking really nice starting Tuesday or Wednesday. I have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of this week open for kayak trips. My website is cleanfunfishing.com. Thanks for watching. Let's go get them tight. This is the general area. I think we're gonna drift it. What we'll do is get up just a little bit closer to the island. Okay. There is a little bit of bait moving in here.